At the time, I didn't know what an unusual and unique childhood I was having, and when I look back at it now, I realize it really was. I went to a very small private alternative school. My mother worked there, and so I was able to go tuition free. And it was out in the country, even though we lived in the city. And it was very much built on a child-centered learning model, so very much encouraging critical thinking and exploration, and lots of time outside and turning rocks over in the creek and climbing trees, and a really wonderful. My mother was always very committed to a number of causes. In particular, was pretty involved in the women's movement in the 70s when I was young and coming into my adolescence. And so I think I grew up with that sense of there are some things that are out of balance or not right, and there's a way we can be in the world that helps move them more into balance. She was born in Germany, a Jew, in 1928, and was evacuated at about the age of 11 or 12. Too, I grew up with my mother, much more time spent with my mom, lived with my mom, but I saw my father throughout growing up, and he also was very much of an activist and became very committed to the peace movement. Work was there. So he, as a scientist and an educator background, had a much more active activist lifestyle as an adult later, and that coincided with my teen and young adult years. So I think that, coupled with my mother's sort of subtler, more philosophical political activism, really helped inform a lot of who I am today. So I really, like I said, very much a self-directed learner, and just sort of threw myself into things that resonated and felt important to me and learned about them as I went. So in my late teen years and early 20s, I worked at a feminist women's health center in Philadelphia. Started there as a volunteer, actually escorting women through picket lines. We had picketers come out on the nights we offered free pregnancy testing and options counseling. On the West Coast, we settled in Yachats, Oregon, which couldn't be more not Philadelphia than you could imagine, and just took a break, just relaxed there for about a year and a half, and lived a very slow pace, and worked between us several odd part-time jobs, mostly seasonal, as is what it's like on the coast. And we're living very close to the edge ourselves, but it was much easier to do then. Somehow it was very interesting, even just in that little bit of time living there, the difference once I had a child. It really felt different. It felt different to me to be a couple scraping by and not really being sure in 3 months whether we'd have any income or not, and that was kind of okay. But once we had this child, it really felt different. I really felt like I needed to look a little further out and know what was coming and what we could count on, and that we could take care of her. And so my partner took advantage of an opportunity available at the time, and we moved to Eugene, and he enrolled at the U of O. And we moved into the Whitaker neighborhood when we first moved here, and really quickly developed a very strong community of friends that we're still close with today. We had a babysitting co-op of young families in the neighborhood. We had dinner co-ops where we'd make each other dinner on a rotating basis. There was just a very open, supportive community feeling to the neighborhood and to that group of friends. Many of the people in our babysitting co-op and in the neighborhood of similar minds, and their child rearing styles, a lot of in-arms parenting, a lot of family bed co-sleeping, child-led weaning. Many of us were still nursing children that were toddlers or even preschool age children at that time, and really relied on each other for support and information in bringing our children up that way. So in the late 80s, joined the Whitaker Community Council. And one of the key issues then was, as it is now, sort of quality of neighborhood life without sacrificing keeping it an accessible, open neighborhood for everyone. And so I became a volunteer at the food bank then. Little bits and pieces, what I could do, helping with stuffing envelopes for mailings and moving food around. But became really close friends with another woman who worked there at the time, and her daughter started babysitting for my kids, and we just developed a friendship, and I developed a relationship with the organization, and deepened my understanding of the problem of hunger. And you know, while as a young mom, we got some assistance from food stamps, we were enrolled in the WIC program, but we were never in a position where we actually had to worry about whether we were going to have enough. Because we had those supports, we had that help, we had a garden, and we had information about how to prepare good food. So we opted to live a little closer to the edge financially than maybe we needed to, but we were so much more comfortable sort of emotionally and philosophically and psychically. So there was some stress, there was definitely some stress and tension living that way, you know, living without insurance, living, you know, having to be careful and pinch pennies and so on, but we never moved into that next level on the spectrum of need, of actually having to go without. I never felt we actually had to go without. I did a number of different roles while I was there, but I loved answering the phones. I loved being the one that was that first point of contact, because often it was just somebody who needed to be put through to somebody else's desk to talk to them, but about a quarter of the calls coming in were people needing help, needing to know where they could go to get some help. And it felt really important to me to not just give them an address and the hours of operation of where they could go to get a food box, but to give them some support and make sure they knew there was other help available too if they might need that, and if they did, be able to put them in touch with that. So for example, you know, was the person needing a food box because they had spent all their money on their utility bill so that their power wouldn't be shut off? Well, did they know there was utility assistance available? Helping them make that connection. We all went up together to Portland to volunteer for the day at an event called Project Homeless Connect that they were putting on up there. We went up there for the day. We were so blown away by what we saw in terms of the level of service, the breadth of service that they were able to pull together in one place for one day. So the whole drive back down I-5 after volunteering for the day there, this group of 4 of us just, should we do this in Lane County? Could we pull it off? Who would we need to talk to? Where would it be? And we just, you know, we had 2 hours of planning in the van on the way back. And we got back and hit the ground running, and the first Project Homeless Connect here in Lane County was held. And Homeless Connect wasn't just connecting homeless people to services. It was connecting the providers to one another, the elected officials to the folks who were homeless or at risk of homelessness, the volunteers to the organizations. I mean, the network of connections was just thrilling to see. And I like to think, and I do know from conversations I've had with people, that it does make a difference beyond those events. It has made a difference in the community beyond those events, that people's understanding of who were those people in that room who needed that help that day and what brought them there. It has softened some of the edges, but there's still so much to do around that. It's really very sad to me how scared of each other we are. There are so many more people, so much more in need. And again, going back to what we were talking about earlier of that fear, people who are not in need are so fearful, I believe, of ever being there, that when they see someone who is, that person represents the potential that they could be there, and that's why they can't see that. You know, you're other, you're something else, you're not me. I could never. That makes me think about it, so I just won't look at them. and then how that feels to be that family that won't get looked at, and what all that does, what all that emotion that perpetuates, and sets us up as, well, if the world is seeing me as this is what I am, and then that's how we are in the home, and that's how we're projecting to our children, and then that's how they start identifying themselves. Oh, we're the poor family, or we're the kids that have to line up for the free winter coat giveaway, and the this and the that, and then that's so much of perpetuating that generational poverty piece. It all goes back to, is the system just? Is it set up in a way that's just and fair, and honors and respects families in doing right by themselves? And the answer, in my opinion, is no. The system is not set up that way. And so we work to try to make those corrections as best we can. The position that I'm in now, this job with LJ, is for me the perfect mix of, it satisfies that part of me that is really fascinated by organizational culture and organizational development and systems and structures, and how do you set those systems up to make best use of the resources and the interest and the passion for a mission. And then the mission itself, which is ensuring all kids have access to healthful, nutritious food and can be active and safe in the world. But doing that from a place of public policy advocacy, of recognizing that it's policies and systems that shape the environments we're in, and those environments shape our personal decisions and behaviors. I have to get really clear in what's my goal, what's my objective, what's the mission I'm working for. And then I have to hold that, not put it aside, hold it, but take some time to go hear from other people. What are your goals and your mission and your objective? And then take those two things and see where do they overlap, and that's the place to work. If you keep having the dialogue and the conversations, things change and things evolve, and conditions change, and people's experience shapes them, and they change. And so if you keep having those conversations and you circle back, you might find a little bit down the road that there now has developed some overlap where there didn't used to be, and that's the time to work together.